Good morning, people from the world. Here's Tommy B coming at you back with another random rant video. Today we're going to go a little bit more towards my watch geeky content. Yeah, you heard it, watch geek. I'm a person that loves horology, the study of time and its measurements. That's horology. So, when we're talking about horology, we talk about watches. And today I want to talk maybe the most important watch of all time, the one that shaped the watch world that we know nowadays. Before we get started, quick wristwatch tech. Before it crashed, it was my 34mm Rolex Air King. Now, let's go back to the watch. So we're talking about Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, or AP Royal Oak, however you'd like to call it. Well, going back to 1968, we go back to the quartz crisis, where Seiko started commercializing quartz crystal watches, watches with battery. Before that, watches were actually a need. You needed a watch to tell time. There was no way to have a digital watch or something cheap to see the time. You needed a mechanical one. So, after the release of the quartz crystal watches, the electronic watches, the technology was outdated. Mechanical watchmaking was actually there was no need for it, because electronic watch would be much more accurate. +1, -2 seconds a year instead of a day, like a COSC certified watch. COSC is chronometer certification. It tells you that your watch runs +1, -2 seconds a day. So that's really accurate for a mechanical watch. And electronic ones don't lose a second in a month. Nothing. They're just perfect. Okay, so the Holy Trinity, which are the three most prestigious watch brands. Well, that's what people say. I don't agree, but that's a Holy Trinity. It's Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, and Audemars Piguet. They all only produced precious metal watches at the time. Only gold, platinum, only precious metals at the time, because steel was considered like the less precious metal, only used for lower end watches or for utilities. It wasn't used for luxury. It wasn't considered luxury. So these three watch brands, they start going bankrupt. They're losing money. They're not making any, because most people, they don't want that technology anymore. It's not a need. That luxury wasn't. Well, they didn't need it. They could buy a $50 electronic watch that gave the time much better. So a lot of brands started producing their quartz watches. Even Rolex. Rolex produced the Oyster Quartz. That at the time sold well. People wanted the new technology. At the time, it wasn't that much of the other one being bad. It was simply that they wanted what was hip, the latest one. Even if people were spending $1,000 on a luxurious watch, they wanted what was in. And what was in was electronic. They wanted the tick in their watches. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's how it was at the time. That's why Rolex produced the Oyster Quartz. Now, going back to the Royal Oak and the AP. AP was in trouble. The Holy Trinity didn't know what to do. They couldn't sell watches. They were losing. So, what do? Do they produce a quartz watch? What do? They only had precious watches. So, Audemars Piguet does the unthinkable, the unimaginable. They hired this designer, Gerald Genta, nowadays a genius in watchmaking, but back then he was just a well-known artist, not in watches at all. So they hired Gerald Genta to design this watch. He was supposedly given like one day deadline. Seriously, 1 day. That's what I heard, because they were desperate. They needed it right now. And in that day, he supposedly, in a napkin, he actually draws the Royal Oak. Now, the Royal Oak was introduced, I believe, in 1972 with being the first watch from the Holy Trinity being offered in stainless steel. First one. It was groundbreaking. At the moment, it was at $3,000 US, I believe, which at the time cost more than a gold Rolex. It was crazy. A lot of people didn't know what the heck, what is this? So it was lower price points for Audemars Piguet, but it still was really, really high for a stainless steel watch. That made an impact. That made a huge impact in the whole watch community, the whole watch world, and the industry. That watch made customers realize, well, not realize, but shifted their way of thinking from stainless steel watches. After AP released the Royal Oak, people started thinking that stainless steel could actually be luxury if it had the proper manufacturing process. It was made properly. Stainless steel could be considered luxury. After a couple of years that Royal Oak was released, at the moment it wasn't that popular. It was only for like the daredevils. Like you want to dare to be different, want to dare to spend that much money on a stainless steel watch, which was crazy. You would buy a Royal Oak. It was more about this statement. You're different, and that actually shifted the whole watch world. Patek 2 years later released the Nautilus. I don't know how much after the overseas was released by Vacheron, but the Nautilus was actually a copy of the Royal Oak. They hired the same designer, Gerald Genta, to produce pretty similar watch in stainless steel. That being the Nautilus. Actually, the hottest watch there's nowadays is the Patek 5711 Nautilus, which had a secondary value. Like the retail was $20,000, secondary value was $40,000, $45,000. And what Patek did to try to grab some of that demand, they actually rose the price this year from $20,000 to $30,000 of the 5711 Nautilus, and that drove the secondary market even higher to around $50,000, which I don't think is actually acceptable. I don't think it'll keep going higher or stay there. Probably it will go down. It's actually crazy. And the Royal Oak had a huge impact in the world, enormous. This, if you actually think about it, that shift from seeing stainless steel watches as luxury had a huge impact in Rolex, because after the quartz crisis, Rolex started going heavy, marketing like crazy, and they started growing more as a luxurious brand instead of being a utility. Rolex, like if you were a diver, you used to work your Rolex Submariner. You were a pilot, you wore your Rolex GMT. You were a car driver, you wore the Daytona. It was like the watch to use in the certain situation was more like it was a sports watch, a watch for the activities. It wasn't a luxurious show-off piece. So with that transition in the market, Rolex saw an opportunity, and they tried to fill in that luxury part with their watches, with their stainless steel watches. They changed a lot of the process. They changed the indices to gold indices, hand applied dials, a lot of really luxurious implements that Rolex did to try to snag that part of the market. So it's really interesting how it all started with surviving with AP, surviving the quartz crisis, and that actually led to Patek following, and actually Rolex looking for an opportunity to grow, and it actually grew so much it dominates. Rolex right now dominates the watch world. I believe it's almost 50% or 40% of all watches, luxurious watches sold or traded, are Rolex. It's impressive. The secondary market, especially on Rolex, it's insane. So yeah, AP Royal Oak, maybe the most important watch of all time. It's crazy. I want one. I hopefully will get one someday. It's one of my grails. I don't see it as really far away, because the one I like is around 10 grand. Obviously it's a ton of money. But counting that my holy grail, like the Zeitwerk A Langen Zone, is around 120, 130,000. 10 grand is is on the near scope. Well, even if 10 years is near, it's nearer than the Zeitwerk or some other crazy watches I really like. So if you like the content, like what I said, all the information, I got anything wrong, please let me know. I love to talk watches. I love to learn. Let's start being engaged in the comment section. Let's talk about watches. Please show this video to people that love watches, that like to talk to them, like to wear them, like to do whatever, man. Hell, let's have fun. See you on the next one. Goodbye, watch geeks.